Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of Disruption Talks, where we invite top experts to discuss digital acceleration, winning strategies, innovation, and scaling products. And product is going to be the focus of our conversation today. We have the absolute pleasure, after hosting a couple of people from the retail slash e-commerce slash luxury, all of that space, Diana Martins, the group product manager at Farfetch. Uh, the direct division I've learned after watching some of your CEO's interviews is that you are not a retailer, you are a tech company, you are a platform. Precisely, you do not hold any inventory. You merely make sure that the entirety of it all stays connected. Is that right?
That's exactly true. And hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here, talking a bit around, as you were saying, product, tech, and a bit of retail.
Trust me, the pleasure is all ours. But let's dive in. But before we start talking about Farfetch, let's talk about Diana, right? So, Diana, you've been in retail from almost 5 years. I've stalked your LinkedIn, right? But previously, you were involved in product development at telecom companies. So, tell me, how does Diana from telecom go to Diana at Farfetch and retail in general, right?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's the same Diane as you were saying, kind of in two different business that I'd say that have a lot of more in common that we usually think from kind of a principal standpoint, as you were saying. So just very briefly, so I've worked for 5 years, as you were describing, in NOS, that is a Portuguese telco company that basically provides mobile, fixed communication, television, and internet solutions. And in there, I work also in corporate and enterprise part of the business. So making sure we were providing kind of the best solution, designing the best telco solution in this case for our Portuguese companies. And this could be kind of a small company or, as I was saying, kind of a bigger one, a corporate one. Then I felt that it was time to change into kind of a new business. And I would say it was a mix of a need of a different market and also a different industry in terms of the level of maturity, because of course telco, it's a business, it's a discipline that is a very mature market in terms of offers, in terms of how clients buy the product versus Farfetch, very related with the tech, very related with retail, that presents kind of new challenge. However, and kind of looking in reflection to this two paradigms, I'd say that personally it felt and still feels quite natural, this change. It was kind of an organic change, because basically the principles and kind of the type of work that I've done into companies have the baselines, have the foundational pillars in common. So I'd say that all the principles in terms of having a customer-centric approach, building things and products with a client mindset in mind, it's exactly the same. So in telco, I was offering probably telephony systems and dealing with the issues when things weren't working. Here we are offering tech, and we are also dealing with things when site or where the offer has some issue. So it's exactly the same. Develop the right products for the right client that is in need. I also would say that in terms of main principles, in terms of stakeholder management, this is something that, again, felt very organic and very natural. So we all need to make sure that what we are offering in terms of product, again, it's the right product, and that feels kind of the one that fulfills the expectation and the needs of the customer. And I guess that's the part where the product function becomes a little bit fun, because, and this is the same in a telco or in a retail and luxury environment. Probably most of the times the client has a need or has some idea of what he wants, but he needs kind of our help to understand how to solve it, how to fix it. So it's exactly the same in terms of to deal with this kind of expectation versus motivation versus disalignment of expectation at the end. And probably last one in terms of how previous experience are helped me into this new one. Also in terms of dealing with a huge organization, with an aspect where you have different teams working each other to the final goal, but each team has its own purpose, each team has its own mission, each team has its own function, right? So we need to work with tech teams, we need to work with business owners, we need to work with the teams that then kind of support the product and maintenance of the product. And I'd say this is really important in terms of change management and in terms of deal with that. And that's super kind of a reality that I found in the two environments.
Okay, so I've heard about all of the similarities, but what's the difference between the telco customer and the Farfetch I'm gonna get a luxury hat customer, right? What are the things that vastly differ those, other than the things that I could think of, but I'm not sure, right? Please tell me.
Yeah, so that's true. So in one, basically you are buying probably kind of a telco card or a telephony because you are just you are trying to fulfill a basic need, right? You are just trying to reach someone. You are trying to connect to someone, or you're trying to reach a new level of communication. Versus, I would say here, what we are offering is that tech piece that allows you to place or to be somewhere in the luxury market. But I'd say it's the storytelling, right? So telco, it's very much around you are connecting, and it's a commodity, right? People need to connect, people need to have that communication layered, people need to access new media to kind of have access to the information, versus in this case the luxury or the retail piece, where I would say people search for it due to this need of use fashion as a way to express their individuality, right? Kind of their way they want to stand in the world. But again, and I know the question is about the difference, I really want to reiterate that I feel that as a product manager, on our case, what we work towards, the principles are quite the same. We are solving kind of a need from a real person to a real person.
Okay, and my follow-up question, especially what you mentioned, that fashion is expression. It's not always that if you end up in industry XYZ, you must be a huge lover of XYZ. As in, if I end up working in ball bearings for a Swedish company, it doesn't necessarily mean that my life revolves around that, right? But tell me what you think about this, because I would imagine that in such an attractive industry as fashion, where probably there is a lot of people trying to get in, both due to the fact that they have this emotional connection with the industry because they simply love fashion since they were a child, or they love fashion since they started studying it, or they love fashion to the point that they want to one day develop their own brand. So it becomes a very personal industry approach, right? So do you think that, let's sort of categorize this question. Do you think it's a must for people, for product people who trying to get into the industry, to love fashion, to have a relationship with fashion? Is it helpful, or have you seen, for example, some people who completely crack the fashion code of the industry, especially with product, but you wouldn't call them the typical fashionistas, so to say?
Yeah, that's a good one. I can say for sure that I'm not kind of a fashion lover from my 5 years old. Probably I would like to be an astronaut, and then kind of a pianist, and then kind of probably kind of a cineast. So I'm not that person at all, let me say. I would say that, of course, we need to like fashion because it's the environment you are in, and you need to be updated in terms of the fashion world and fashion business, because it's really a part of your environment and paradigm that you are in. But I would say, and starting with the words you mentioned around José Neves, Farfetch, it's most of all kind of, it's a tech company for the love of fashion. So you have there really the connection with the tech, with the fact of being a platform. And a platform, it's really a paradigm of an ecosystem, right? That kind of gathers sellers, buyers, providers, and customer, and basically this piece of tech allows you to empower these brands and these retailers into a further stage. So basically, what I feel is that, and I work in a Farfetch platform solution area that basically provides these capabilities of the platform into brands and retailers. They see us as the experts on the tech part, on the e-commerce part. So we are there because we know how to a proper checkout is, how we can kind of help them in fulfill the packages, how can we do the streamline of the e-commerce. But it's the brand and it's the retailer that is really kind of the fashion expert, is the one that position its brand, it's the one that kind of does all the storytelling, of course with the help that we can provide from more a tech perspective, as I mentioned. So I'd say in essence, I feel that my work, it's much more about kind of designing, building, evolving, scaling instruments from a platform, in an environment that, of course, it's always challenged, because the fashion world, it's indeed very, very challenged, and the pace that things will happen within it, it's really amazing. So we really need to keep up to speed on that.
I mean, I hands down agree, in the sense that you just flipped the coin by using my own words, not against me, but to educate me with what I said at the beginning of that this is not a retailer, this
Made good
is
sense.
a product. So yeah, I guess I stepped into that one, didn't I? Okay, so I'm also curious about this, because a headline from 2015 reads, Fashion Unicorn Farfetch raises $86 million at a $1 billion valuation. And jumping over to Farfetch a little bit more right now, I'm curious, in your perspective, was it highly helpful, or perhaps I'm being wrong, it wasn't helpful at all to be in such a spotlight of being the first Portuguese, one of the first Portuguese unicorns, right? Has it influenced Farfetch's journey over the years? As in, this is our local sweetheart, you get all of the attention, everybody wants to help, or maybe there's a different story. What was it like?
No, I think it's as you were saying. Actually, I think it was a very impactful thing, and it is true that for one side, we were in the spotlight, as you were saying, but at the same time, we kind of benefit from all of it. I'd say not only the part, of course, of being a unicorn, but also due to the uniqueness of the vision, right, that José had here, in terms of, again, to use the world around doing this alliance of fashion and technology. This was a position that allow us to build kind of great things, and I would say that this was one of the first company that gathered this two main background and start to bring here a new level of excellence into the business. I would say that also this really served as an example of attracting additional entrepreneur mindset, And I'd say it's really an example in Portugal in terms of how kind of a dream, a vision, a mission can really become something big, and one of the huge companies in the environment, as well as kind of bringing the chance that new unicorns can come in a Portugal in a country as Portugal, that it's a small country compared with Spain. And I think I was reading on the other day, we have as many unicorns as for example Spain or other countries. So I would say it's also an example of how things can really empower and can really serve as an example of how great things can be done with the right mission and the right values. And I'd say, and allow me to talk a bit about values, because I think it's something that it's really at the core of the culture that the company still lives. I'd say that was was and is for sure one of the important things that still is part of the way we work, and the part that we keep the DNA of going further and kind of position in a level of excellence, as you were saying. So we have some values in our company, and one of those is, for example, be revolutionary, which I guess position also within this layer of disrupting kind of the status quo, kind of being the first one doing this, kind of the idea of embracing innovation with a total new mindset, which represents the idea that we are here to shape the future and to give that example. The other one that I think it's also quite interesting from this kind of example and spotlight point of view, as you were mentioned, it's the fact of being brilliant. So this is also one of the values that we have in terms of making sure we are unrivaled from kind of a market, a tech, a fashion point of view, and that we are able to overcome all the challenge in terms of ambiguity and in terms of complexity that appears in our way. Okay, so I would say that for sure it was spotlight, but it's the way that how we use and how we capitalize that spotlight into further good, and to make sure that the spotlight is consistent and that is basically stable in the way that we keep ourselves in the market.
And here in the comments we have a question that's actually highly helpful to what you were mentioning about the values. So a question from Radek. Not to go too much into the details of when the company was launched and the numbers itself, but the main remark is that there has been a huge growth, a market cap of close to 6 billion in an industry that's typically viewed as overcrowded. How did Farfetch specifically identify the opportunity to disrupt the retail sector, and what makes you excited for your continued growth as Farfetch, but also as Farfetch as the product, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as you were saying, we have, and as Radek was mentioned, kind of it's an industry that can be seen as an overcrowded one. But I think Farfetch has this business model that allows you to position ourselves in a quite different environment comparing to some of our competitors, in a way that we have this model where we don't rely uniquely in physical retails, but we have kind of a distribution, a set of network that allow us to ship the products from different locations, from different countries, which I would say it's something that contrasts with other luxury retailers, and basically allow us to be prepared to other challenge. So I think that's really one of the key things that I feel allow us to behave more as a platform. Again, kind of the idea that we gather the sellers, the buyers, the consumers in order to shape that future. In a more personal answer, I'd say in terms of what makes me most excited for this continue grow, I would say that is the mix of the unexpected, and also the mix of what's to come from the innovation layer. Okay, one of the huge things that we see in our day-to-day work, it's really to make sure we do things with this unrivaled mindset, as I was mentioned, or kind of this be brilliant mindset. And each day of my work, it's really a different one with new challenge and new opportunities. I would say that, of course, kind of the time where we are from a market perspective, it's quite interesting being out of this, or hopefully out of this post-pandemic world. Not easy. It's kind of a word that we start to say a lot in our day, but kind of it's a new paradigm, right? And I would say that also from kind of a product perspective, we are more and more looking into offer new products into our clients that place ourselves not only as an end-to-end platform provider, but also as a modular product offer provider, which position ourselves in a quite challenging position from a product perspective, where we always want to make sure that kind of we design, we offer, we test and learn about the best products to our clients.
And just before we start jumping into further questions about now and the future, I have still one question about when we were discussing Farfetch and its perhaps not beginnings, not origins, but the earlier days. So would you say, and of course this is a loaded question given that NetGuru is asking it, but would you suggest that developing a platform from scratch is a better way to start than using third-party solutions? And I don't necessarily mean third-party solutions like the consultancies of the world like NetGuru, but even just, you have no code, you have low code. There is the opportunity for people who can jump over the technological barrier because it has been taken much lower, just to Frankenstein it, so to say, right? You can collect and glue together a couple of solutions. And what was the approach for Farfetch, and has it changed over the years in terms of proprietary, custom, our own, and perhaps introducing and allowing some third-party solutions?
Yeah, so I'd say that Farfetch has an approach that allows us to think in the core business, in things that make sense more from a platform perspective, and things that really need to be there for that business, versus what can be supported, as you were saying, by third parties that are specialists in particular functions that exist in the industry, and that probably are not our core or the things that we want to invest or have a little bit of additional value on that. I'd say the key thing, and answer to your point around the past, the now, and the future, it's really that when we look into this approach, and here really thinking from a product management perspective, we really need to consider kind of what is the view in terms of the short, in terms of the medium, and the long-term goals and expectations, to make sure that we have this notion of trying, test, learn, and possibly fail, and kind of try again, right? I think it's the principle of life. So I would say in Farfetch we have some examples of that, and one of the one of the recent examples. Actually, it was on the news some weeks ago in terms of the recent acquisition by Luxclusive, that is basically a resale platform. We've been working together with Luxclusive for some years. They enter our first startup accelerator program that was called Dream Assembly, and basically we've worked with them in order to onboard them as a third party in this case, to offer a Farfetch resale service that is called Farfetch Second Life. Okay, so with the passing of the years, we understood that it could make sense to bring this value proposition into our platform, because all this process of kind of making sure that there is this additional buyback offer, it's becoming part of the key principle of the market, of the luxury world. So we understood that this value proposition would be key to embed in a platform layer. And now, as we can see, we've kind of add them also into our tech, into our core offer of the platform. So I'd say here's a good example of how to start with an idea of a third party and create a POC, a proof of concept, and then see how it goes. How can this be a broader added into the platform, or not? We can just assume that indeed that third party offers what no one else can offer, and makes sense to keep it part of the ecosystem. Again, it's really that mix that we need to balance between kind of the satellites of the third parties versus things that we need to onboard into the platform.
That completely works as an answer. And now zoom on the timeline. We are in the today, looking towards the future. So Farfetch is one of the most innovative retailing companies so far. We've seen the entrance into the metaverse. We've seen the virtual try-ons. I'm curious, do you think that this is a function of fashion companies, that especially the higher fashion, the luxury fashion, that you simply need to be ahead of the curve because fashion is all about catching eyeballs, right? It's all about grasping that attention. And how else do you grasp the attention other than showing the most shiniest, technologically impressive solution out there and being the first to showcase it to your clients? Do you think it's, I don't want to call it a curse, but this sort of chain that if you enter the fashion world, this will be a highly important driver of how you make decisions, in terms of, we have a roadmap, but this roadmap always needs to encompass the latest trends, not maniacally just grabbing every trend that goes there, but for example, virtual try-ons or the metaverse are things that simply cannot be ignored. And do you think that in fashion it is something that can be ignored by a company like Farfetch or any other competitor, or is it just an obligation of the industry?
Yeah, I'd say that it's not a matter of being an obligation or that we can just ignore. It's really something that can make us unique, right? And I think that surfaces to the point that we were raising around how can we differentiate, how can we be better, how can we position as a different value propositions to our customer. And I'd say that innovation, it's indeed that key pillar of our strategy. And I feel innovation is really at the heart of the development of our platform, because as you were saying, if we want to be, and this is the Farfetch mission, it's to be the leading global platform for the luxury fashion industry. We won't be just because, as you were saying, kind of the ad or the dress looks glamorous in a product listing page, or because kind of we have the greatest storytelling performing in the homepage. Of course, that's part of it. Don't get me wrong; it's a huge part of it. But we need to offer, I'd say, not only the best solution, the best products, and to have that layer of the right communication and the right level of position, but we need to offer more and different. And a huge opinion of that is, for me, answered throughout the innovation. And if we look back into Farfetch history, quite recently, in 2017, so we launched, for example, Store of the Future, where we started to unveil all these augmented retail vision, right? Basically a suite of technologies that improves all the part in terms of retail productivity, and that's currently is evolving into the vision of luxury new retail, which allow us to drive the transformation of the entire, or aims to drive the transformation of the entire luxury industry for the years to come. I would say it's how to make things for the first time, how to challenge what the paradigm and the ecosystem is wanting into the things that the ecosystem and paradigm will want to have tomorrow. And this is kind of a big tagline, I know that, and I feel that this is really part of our job, and we need to make sure we bring this further thinking into our product development, into our teams, into the ways that we basically work to make sure that we scale at a great pace, right? So I would say that the way we look into this part of making different, as you were saying, kind of, it's not really as an obligation, but as a part of our DNA. And I would say the way we look into innovation is visible in the way how we organize teams, how we put ourselves the challenge in terms of the objectives and key results that we want to have for the year, and of course that's also very deeply in the connection that we have with these brands and retailers that we work within Farfetch platform solutions, that also help us to bring those problems and these new ideas, and see us as experts that look into that.
Okay, so I just asked this question with the approach of the customer acquisition, so to say, of getting the attention, right? And now I have a question from the audience. It comes from Adrian, and that is a question about keeping those eyeballs loyal and looking only at Farfetch, hopefully. Adrian says he has a simple question. How do you make sure that your clients would like to engage with Farfetch and don't buy anywhere else? Do you use advanced analytics in order to predict customer behaviors and next best action, or anything else? The key question remains, if someone comes to Farfetch and uses Farfetch, how do they stay on Farfetch and don't go anywhere else?
Yeah, that's a great question, and probably we can extend it also. How can we make sure that the clients that also buy in our Farfetch platform websites keep buying them? And I would say a great part of our job is to make sure that we offer the best experience from an end-to-end perspective to the client, okay? And I'd say working within kind of, and as Andreas mentioned, with the analytics from the marketplace, within the analytics that we have from our other clients, this allows us to position ourselves in terms of having a great layer of learnings, expertise, and insights from an end-to-end perspective flow. So we do a lot of A/B tests, we do a lot of test and learn to make sure that from a funnel perspective, the experience that we have in the website, it's the best. So that's one of the things that I would say it's really important. And this idea of optimization, of making sure that we are providing the best experience, it's really within our DNA from kind of a product point of view. And the other one, it's making sure that we have a great post-purchase experience, right? So it's one of the things that can really make that trigger in terms of what's next. Was my experience so amazing that now I'm a promoter and I will tell everyone that I bought in Farfetch, and that was kind of amazing because the box was particularly shining, or because I received a card that was really personal, versus the detractor people, right? That just tell us around the horrible experience that they have because the product arrived with some damage. And we know that the detractor people talks a lot more versus the promoter people. So I'd say that's also a key part of the work that we do, to make sure that the post-purchase experience it's really a good one, and to make sure that client always come back with a smile in the face, and with also a purpose of creating new avenues of categories, diversification, and other buys. One of the other points that I would like to mention, it's also around these additional business, for example, that allow us to have more customers, and making sure this loyalty is kept. So, for example, the point that we were mentioning around Second Life, and I was saying now it's also it was an additional answer that we had here. It's also how to complement business, right? So within kind of the Second Life, you are able to submit, in this case, imagine a bag from, let me make an example, from Gucci, for example, a very super cool bag from kind of the latest 80. And then what we create here, it's the chance for the customer to use the value of that bag into credit in Farfetch.com. So again, this creates a new avenue of loyalty and new ways to kind of capture the attention of the client into further business.
So this is Second Life that you speak of. Also, that's a serious step into the circular economy, right? If we might call it so. We had Vinted recently. I know that there are also companies like the Real, which focus also on ensuring that this is you can not only buy but you can also sell. And if I may also take this answer and throw us into another question from the audience, because also the circular economy brings about the fact about sustainability, of course, right? So we have a question from Janetta, and she says, being a part of a disruptive world, you have to have a sustainability mindset. And is Second Life of Farfetch the answer to it? What challenges would await those who try to enter the customer-to-customer world in terms of platform solutions?
Yeah, so as you were saying, kind of circularity, and more than circularity, I'd say sustainability here, it's still the world, because circularity, it's probably one of the answer. It's a huge part of the opportunities and also problems that we are looking and facing from a fashion retail point of view. Actually, allow me to correct. I would say that this is a huge issue that we are facing as an individual in the world, right? So we all know that the idea of our resources in the environment, it's kind of becoming less and less, or more and more important, due to kind of the lack of resources that we have in general. I'd say we are also gaining a new perspective, or at least within this pandemic years that we face, I think we've always gained a new perception of what relevance and kind of what is our role in the world that can be really finite. I'd say it's one of the key learnings that we all had from these years. So I would say more and more people want to have a shopping experience that is relevant, and a shopping experience that it also tackles with some meaningful experience, and brings this principle of sustainability to life. So in terms of sustainability, in this case, Farfetch has a huge part of the work connected by this layer and has some principles in terms of making it work. One is circularity, without any doubt. So all the program in terms of the second life program, but also entering into some other business as donation, that basically allows you also to kind of sell your product, and that will create a donation piece into the Farfetch website. But I would say it's also more than that. So it's also in terms of how can we have a better visibility and transparency around the products that we are selling in the website to our customer, right? So how can we make sure that people who are buying, the final consumer, has the right perspective around where are these materials coming from, where were the fabrics around the materials brought to life. So that's one, in terms of making sure access to information, it's more and more common. And the other one, I'd say it's also very much around trying to bring this together from an experience of the products that we are buying. So the product is not kind of a fast piece of clothes that you buy and then you just don't use anymore. It's a narrative that you can bring to the product, right? So the product was created at a certain part of the world, then it was acquired by Flip, for example, in this case, then it was passed to your, I don't know, I will make you a family, okay? To your children, then the children goes into your cousin, and then you just don't want this anymore, and it becomes a vintage piece, and then it goes to kind of a vintage market. So how can we follow more this pattern and this life cycle of a product to make sure that there is this concept of longer time? And I would say for sure this is a new paradigm around how we look into a piece of clothes that just you buy and then it's not used anymore, versus you buy a piece of clothes and that has a narrative that follows throughout your life and others' life, but they will know you more or less because you probably will be anonymized at some point, but they know that someone had that before some years and had this story. So I think it's quite an interesting and exciting world to come.
It's interesting. I never thought about this way, especially that it brings as much of a juicy element of the storytelling as much as it brings of utility and credibility. I imagine that even if a platform such as Vinted wanted to introduce something like that, I as a potential buyer would be perhaps not much more safer, but it would be that extra mile kind of treatment of someone thinking, okay, if you know the story, that allows you to know whether this was worn 20 times or once. That's the utility, that's the practicality, but also the credibility with where was this item purchased? Do you have the receipt? Do you have the box? Has this been passed? If the box has been passed, can the first seller confirm that there was the box? Because that already tells me that it was a legit item. But when it comes to the storytelling part, especially with Farfetch, I envision this becoming an element of the shopping experience, especially when I'm going in for vintage items. For example, if I'm trying to buy a vintage Gucci wallet, and I have this genealogical tree essentially of where it went, who it belonged to, where it was bought. I think it adds that much more to the story when I know that this was bought in this street in Italy or somewhere else, and perhaps someone can tell me that it was bought in summer or during some event, or this was a limited piece. All of those things, when it comes to high fashion, especially things that are not from the latest season, latest release, I completely see that after you explained it, that this adds this extra layer of I don't know, this nuance, this subtlety that people will enjoy, because they like to not just have the item but the entire story of the item. So
Exactly. I think more and more people don't want to buy things, right? We want to have experiences. So this is really a huge part of it, right? We just don't want have a transactional piece that happens in a particular part of the day where you just acquire something. No, you want to leave something that is part of a broader storytelling that probably all this communication also helped to create a particular need. And then within that need, you want to be part of that experience, of that storytelling on that journey, right? And I think that brings us into, again, and I don't want to repeat myself, but I think the word into a meaningful experience, into a relevant, into something that it's part of the way we want to tell other people how things happen. It's a huge part of it.
I see that Adrian in the comments, he mentioned that in Vinted you were secured by the buyer program protection and it saved his wife money many times. Not disputing that. However, what we're talking about here is like the entire history of what has been happening to that item and what's the background, not just between the single purchase that's happening here. So you mentioned one word that caught my ear, my attention. You started talking about textiles, about fabrics, and I was hoping we could talk a little bit about supply chain, especially during the pandemic, and the challenges from a product perspective and how those were overcome by companies like Farfetch, right?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that, and as we mentioned a little bit before, so Farfetch it's in a particular position that basically allow us to deliver. I would say it's 190 countries, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, when a customer sees a product in Farfetch, most of the time that product is available from multiple sellers that can be shipped from different location and different countries. Okay, so I would say from a supply chain standpoint, and with all these kind of struggles that we have during the pandemic, Farfetch in this case had some advantage. I can say advantage because in the chaos, advantage probably wasn't a word, but it had some perks in terms of how to operate in this environment because it was less reliant on particular distribution centers. Okay, nevertheless, I would say that when we face all this COVID challenge, we were living not only from a personal standpoint, all of us, but we were living kind of unprecedented pressures that no one had answers to it, right? I would say that from a product perspective, we learn with our mistakes. So we do once in a particular way, we fail, so we don't repeat that. We just go and try other things. But when looking into this kind of paradigm, we didn't have any example to fall through. So we need really to reinvent things and just kind of wake up in the morning and just tell to ourselves we are not living in a sci-fi movie. This is life now. So let's try to face the challenge with the best face possible. And I would say, answering your question around kind of how we were able to overcome those challenges kind of from a product perspective, I'd say we had to be very fast in deal with unexpected and uncertainty. So one day we would be working towards one scenario where the countries are open and we can ship from that country and consumer can receive kind of the packages versus the next day where everything would change due to lockdowns and restrictions. So this means that from a product perspective, I would say that our assumptions would change almost daily, which makes our work much harder from kind of a prediction point of view, right? So instead of trying to see, okay, so we have this problem, let's put this plan together and kind of have the pros and cons and do a proper solution design, how to tackle a particular challenge, we would need to probably have already the plan A, the plan B, the plan C, and plan D, just to make sure, okay, if close partially, if doesn't close, if close, what we can do it. So from a product perspective, I think this was quite challenging from an impact perspective, but also it was really making sure that kind of our innovative minds were there to make sure that we were creating for the first time some of this solution. Which brings me probably to the second part of the answer that I was thinking in terms of how to overcome. Again, being an unprecedented situation, we would need to make sure that we were innovative, right? So probably we didn't have that answer in terms of just go to checkout and buy, or just go to the home page and don't buy. You would need to have different ways of capturing client attention, and that could be kind of using more phone calls to the clients, or we didn't have photos because products weren't arriving to production, so probably we would need to have videos to show the products, or we would need to kind of photo shoot in other ways, right? So I would say it was a huge chapter of ideation and making sure that, again, the alternatives were there. Because if you just have one plan, probably the plan, well, for sure the plan would fail.
Yeah, definitely. There was no training for all of this, all of these past 2 or 3 years, really, right? We are just being expected to have plan A to Z, maybe in different alphabets, add some numbers, and just be as agile as you could have ever been. And Zofia asks a very tangent question to this. How do you ensure you continually fulfill the needs of the both sides of the Farfetch equation, the customer and the boutique, right? How do you, perhaps I'm overcomplicating, perhaps it's not that difficult. I'm thinking that it's just two groups of needs that are aligned, but that continuously just need to be, tried and tested. If this works, if that works. And what are the techniques and methods that you look to utilize to keep Farfetch as the leader in the industry? For example, feedback loops, or maybe something else? Because you essentially yourself are, in some way it becomes a B2B4C approach, right? When you are dealing with the boutiques and the boutiques are supplying to your end customer. So how does this twister work out for Farfetch?
Yeah, that's a great one, and I would say that it's always to make sure that we get where we want to be as a whole, right? That it's at the end of the day providing kind of the right products to the right people. So and it's a win-win, right? So if if the user kind of is able to buy it in this case in the marketplace, then kind of the boutiques are part of it. One of the things that it's obviously important as we have here is to make sure that the metrics are there, the analysis are there, that the way our boutiques perform are being captured, and we have kind of a specific team that is really working within boutiques to make sure that these metrics, these insights, this feedback in terms of things are part of this equation, and really to make sure that the boutiques thrive within the ecosystem. On the other way, I would say, and looking more into the Farfetch platform solution bit, again, the success, their success, it's our success, right? So again, it's this idea of being a platform, right? Of sharing this data, of sharing this knowledge, of sharing this expertise. So if we learn something in the marketplace, this can be brought to a further value proposition to the other brands, to the other retailers, to the other boutiques. And that's the magic of a platform and of belonging to an ecosystem that is populated populated with the sellers, in this case the boutiques, the other brands, but also with these consumers and these connectors, and even the third parties that we were talking some time ago.
Zofia, I hope that answers the question. It answers it for me. And the last question, because we are just about to wrap up with the 2.5 minutes left, the magic wand question. We ask this question to each and every one of our guest speakers, and I remotely hand over you this Apple Pencil resembling the magic wand, and you get to cast a spell. You get to go abracadabra, and every 12-year-old in the world gets the gift of an education on what? We've heard design thinking, financial prudence. We've heard leave the kids alone. We've heard emotional intelligence. We've heard I don't know. We've heard can I choose to? And there's no right or wrong answer. There's just the answer that's yours. So I would love to hear, what do you think happens after the magic spell is cast by Diana?
Okay, I guess that's my dream, to have a magic wand. I would probably say, well, the ones you mentioned are quite interesting, honestly, but let me try to be a bit original, trying. I would say probably critical thinking, a critical spirit, mindset. I would say that kind of critical thinking skills, in the way that you are able to analyze, have an imagination, evaluate information in order to kind of determine the integrity and the validity of that, versus just kind of assuming that everything that people are saying it's true, and that everything that is in the media it's true, and that everything that you read it's true. It's important. I think people need to be able to form their own opinion and ideas, as well as they understand that there are information that needs to be reconstructed because they were misconstructed before. And basically this, I would say, as a kid, will allow you, if you are able to think like that, and if you are allowed to think like that from an early stage, you will be much more a critical citizen. You will be kind of a person with much an open mindset into the world, but you also be kind of an observant that consumes information, but then is able to kind of create its own line of thoughts. Okay, I'm reading this, I'm seeing that, I know this from my background, I knew this because I learned in school, and this is my opinion. Instead of just kind of being, I'd say, we are all overwhelmed, right, by all this media information, piece of information that everyone consumes. So yes, I would say that probably critical thinking, mindset, and that critical spirit would be my magical one. What do you think?
That completely works, and not even in this be proactively critical of everything, try to be a complete nonconformist, have your own opinion on everything else, and never follow the crowd. Not even in that sense, but in the extremely practical sense of it's 2022. By the time you talk to another human, you already fed your brain with everything on the screen and on another screen and on another screen. So you are subjected and subjecting yourself to a lot of information flow, and it's very helpful to have some sort of filter to just ask yourself those questions of, hey, how do I know this thing that I think that I know, and how do I know that it's actually true, right? So this is just a survival mechanism, really. It's not even something that's something just reserved for the highly intelligent people, but it's essentially, if you're trying to evolve as a human, you need to make sure that you just don't go crazy with the information overflow and check your sources.
Exactly, and create instruments from early stage, right? I guess because when probably you are in a different layer or you have access with a different layer of information, then you can make that own choice, or then you can act upon that communication layer. But it's when you are a kid that it's really important to say, don't think like this. You have this bunch of options to think about it. So if we don't start at this early stage, I'm afraid that the thinking process then becomes too structural, to kind of closed into the funnel of thinking, and that's a shame in terms of potential to the world. So yeah.
I'm not sure about the 12-year-old demographics for Disruption Talks, but any 12-year-old and any parents watching this, don't argue about the kid asking why too many times. It's the best thing that they can do. Just let them keep asking why, and keep that energy until the years to come. So, Diana, thank you so much. Thank you so much for today. Thank you, dear audience. Thank you, Farfetch. Thank you, everybody involved, for this episode. It's been a blast.
Thank you so much. It was really my pleasure. Yeah, and it's great to be here to discuss all these topics that are really part of our world, and hoping it was interesting. Thank you so much from our side.
I can confirm and promise it was interesting. And dear audience, don't miss out, because only in 2 days from now, 47 hours to be specific, we will be jumping into another episode of Disruption Talks, also about retail. However, about a retail company that is a sweetheart in Poland of everybody. It's called Żabka. Diana, I'll actually send you some information. It's a very interesting phenomenon, both in terms of retail and the culture of retail. We're going to be talking about autonomous stores, behind the scenes of Europe's fastest rollout of those stores. So everybody, see you in today's. And Diana, thank you so much for today once again. Bye.